Hi, friends. Happy Wednesday. I hope you had a nice evening and you're ready to work today. It is time for social studies and it's Wednesday. So, like we did last week, I'm going to try once a week to incorporate our scholastic news. And Miss Rudolph is still working on trying to figure out how you can get access to this at home. So, bear with me. And then my hope is after we get back from Thanksgiving break, I will have information for you on how you can specifically log in and how you can play around with Scholastic and get to see all these videos and play these games and things like that. Okay? So, but let's go ahead. Last week we talked about the first Thanksgiving, right? And we learned some great information that there were people over in England that they didn't like what the king was making them do because the king was saying, hey, you need to follow my religion. The people were like, well, we don't want to follow your religion. We want to follow our religion. So they said, we're going to leave England. So they got on the ship, the Mayflower. And remember, they were on that ship for a long, long, long time. And it was hard. They didn't have food. They were very cramped together. There was illness, all these things were going wrong. Finally, they landed at Plymouth, Massachusetts, and they got off the Mayflower and saw some land. Well, the pilgrims started building their land and things like that. But they weren't used to that land. They didn't know where to hunt. They didn't know how to grow food, things like that. So they were starving that winter. It was a hard, hard winter. They did not have very much food, things like that. More illness was going on. Well, Native Americans had been on this land in America long before the Pilgrims ever came. So they were so kind. They had such big hearts and generous hearts that they came and they saw that the Pilgrims were struggling. And so they taught them how to plant things on that soil, how to hunt, and all that good stuff in the area that they were. And to kind of celebrate, they did have a Thanksgiving meal together for all the harvest, all the food that they grew. They all came together and had a meal together to celebrate that great harvest. Well, again, Miss Rudolph told you the Pilgrims were not very nice. They continued taking over the land and taking over the Native Americans, and they weren't very nice to the Native Americans. Um, so that's not where the story ends. Still to this day, we have Native Americans that do not celebrate Thanksgiving because they view it as a very, very sad day. I like celebrating Thanksgiving just because I feel it's important to set aside at least one day a year to be thankful. So, forgetting about the history and things like that, I enjoy celebrating Thanksgiving just for that aspect of it. And also to acknowledge our history. But please know that there are some people, some Native Americans, that don't celebrate Thanksgiving because they view it as a sad day because of how their family long, long, long ago was treated. Okay? So, but today we're going to continue our conversation on Thanksgiving, and I'm bringing in the Scholastic News today. And so up here, I want you to follow along. It says, join the feast. The first Thanksgiving was almost 400 years ago. What was on the menu? Do you know what the word feast means? That's right. The word feast means like a big meal, a big dinner that people come together and eat, and there's so much food. Okay, let's keep going. So it says, what was on the menu? The Pilgrims and the Wampanoag had a feast for 3 days. Today we call that feast Thanksgiving. So remember, their first Thanksgiving lasted 3 whole days, okay? Let me see if I can put this over here. There we go. So it lasted 3 whole days. And last week you were able to watch a video about the life of the Pilgrims and the life of the Wampanoag Native Americans. So again, their first Thanksgiving lasted 3 days, and today we call this Thanksgiving. Okay. Wild birds were on the menu. People ate wild turkey, goose, and duck. They cooked them with onions. They may have eaten pigeons too. Did you know that today we typically have turkey for Thanksgiving? I don't know about you, but I know my family typically always has turkey on Thanksgiving. Well, did you know this first Thanksgiving they did not have turkey? They didn't. The Wampanoag Native Americans and those first pilgrims, they did not have turkey because those there were some wild turkeys, but that they could have hunted, but that's not what they found. So they probably ate um, like pigeons or goose or duck, something like that, but it was not turkey. An interesting fact. It said seafood was on the menu. Now, seafood, that's things like fish, clams, all that good stuff that comes from the ocean because where Plymouth, Massachusetts is, that's next to the ocean, that's next to the sea. So again, the people that were living in that area, they had to learn how to use that area and use it well so they could find food to eat, shelter to live, things like that. So seafood was on the menu. The Wampanoag and the Pilgrims lived by the ocean. They ate a lot of seafood. They ate lobsters, clams, and fish. Do you like seafood? I like seafood. Pumpkin was on the menu. Pilgrims scooped out the pulp from the inside of the pumpkin. Remember that's that gooey, yucky, stringy stuff that we played with and explored? They mixed it with spices and they made it a stew. So another interesting fact is a lot of people have pie for Thanksgiving. Well, you might have pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving. I love pumpkin pie. But the first Thanksgiving, they did not have things like butter and all that good stuff to make the pie. So they did not have pie um, during that. But instead, they did grow things like pumpkins and they were able to take the insides of the pumpkin, mix it with some spices, mix, 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 and they made a yummy stew. A stew is kind of like a soup, okay? And then it says corn was on the menu. Back then, the corn was very colorful. People made cornbread. Have you ever had cornbread before? I've had cornbread. I like eating cornbread with things like soup beans. It's very, very yummy. So it's a type of bread made out of corn. You should try it if you have not. They also made porridge, and porridge is kind of like an oatmeal, okay? So as you can see, the story we think today that, oh, the Pilgrims and the Native Americans, they ate turkey and pie and things like that. Well, it's kind of true, where they did use things like pumpkin and things like that. It's not what we typically celebrate, how we celebrate today. So it's just very interesting to learn that. What was not on the menu? So again, like Miss Rudolph said, they didn't have things like butter to make pie. So pie was not on the menu. Mashed potatoes, my favorite, was not on the menu. Cranberry sauce was not on the menu. Again, probably because maybe the soil could not grow these things, like their area could not grow these fruits and vegetables. And my absolute favorite, stuffing was not on the menu. Can you believe that? So the things that we typically eat today in a traditional Thanksgiving Day meal, the first Thanksgiving, while it was similar, it wasn't exactly what we do today. So it's just very interesting. All right. So what I want you to do is now we're going to answer these questions. And what I want you to do is, I'm going to see if I can make this work. Let's see here. I think I can. Ooh, Miss Rudolph figured it out. Okay. So it says, read the article below, then follow the directions and answer the questions. The Big Feast. How did the feast come to be? The Pilgrims and the Wampanoag were neighbors. The Wampanoag taught the Pilgrims how to plant corn in their new home. The corn grew very well. The Pilgrims had a feast. The Wampanoag came. They all ate. They played games. They had 3 days of food and fun. Okay, so we're not going to worry about number one, but let's look at number two. Participate with me, friends. What did the Wampanoag what what did the Wampanoag help the Pilgrims plant? Fish, corn, or pies? Go ahead. Corn, that's right. So I'm going to fill this in. That's right. Remember, they did teach them how to fish and things like that, but the question was plant. So they planted corn. And remember, we learned that they didn't have pies at that time. How many days did the food and fun last? 3 days, 10 days, or 1 day? That's right. It was 3 whole days. And we call those 3 whole days what we celebrate today on Monday is Thanksgiving. Okay? And what is one thing people did at the feast long ago that you do too? So think back. What did you learn about the Wampanoag and the Pilgrims, how they came together and shared a meal? What did they do that you do similar? Yes, that's right. You might come together with family and friends. They played games, so you might have played games. They ate things like corn, so maybe you have corn at your feast. So yeah, so some of the similarities, some of the things we do the same is coming together, and maybe some of the food that we ate is the same. But again, friends, I want you to remember that even though we do celebrate Thanksgiving and it is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful time, a time to be thankful and to remember our history, I do want you to remember two important things that the Native Americans were here long before the Pilgrims came. And then I want you to remember that even though their relationship started great and they had this wonderful 3-day celebration that we now know as Thanksgiving, I want you to remember that the Pilgrims then were not so very nice and they kept taking over their land and not treating the Native Americans that well. I just want you to remember that because we need to appreciate what Native Americans today are going through. They have a sad day where they try to remember their relatives that lived long, long before them, okay? So I want you to have fun Thanksgiving and I want you to celebrate with your loved ones if that's what you're doing. And I want you to remember all the things that you're thankful for. But please, 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 let's also remember our history, okay? All right, I hope you had fun. Now what I need you to do is you are going to record your voice or make a video telling me one thing you learned from our Scholastic News edition today about Thanksgiving. I can't wait to see what you learned. Have a great day. Bye.